Look at any photograph from the 1970s and something jumps out immediately. The women are slim, not model thin, not diet obsessed, not counting calories on an app, just naturally, effortlessly slim. And the strange thing is, nobody was trying that hard. There were no fitness influencers, no macro tracking, no $14 green smoothies. So what exactly was happening? Because something has changed dramatically between then and now, and it wasn't willpower. This was a time before drive-thrus on every corner, before ultra-processed food took over the supermarket, before people stopped moving their bodies without even realizing it. Women in the 1970s lived differently in ways that kept them lean without ever once stepping onto a scale in a panic. The reasons are fascinating, and for anyone who lived through that decade, some of this is going to feel very familiar. Let's walk through what was actually keeping women slim back then. Some of this might surprise people. Some of it might explain changes that have crept up slowly over the last 50 years. Let's step into that world. The kitchen in the 1970s was a working kitchen. Women, and it was mostly women doing the cooking in that era, prepared meals from scratch almost every single day. Not from a recipe box sent to the door, not from a meal kit, and certainly not from a drive-through bag. Real ingredients combined into real food every evening. A pot roast with carrots and potatoes, a whole chicken roasted in the oven, soup made from scratch on Sunday afternoon, stretching across the whole week. The difference this made to calorie intake was enormous, and nobody had to think about it. When food is cooked from raw ingredients, it naturally contains far less sugar, far less sodium, and far fewer of the industrial additives that drive overeating and processed food. The body registers fullness properly. There are no engineered flavors designed in a laboratory to override the brain's natural stop signal. Portion sizes in the 1970s were simply smaller, not because anyone was being disciplined about it, but because that was simply what a normal portion was. A restaurant meal in 1970 was roughly half the size of what restaurants serve today. A McDonald's regular soda in 1970 was 7 ounces. Today's medium is 21 ounces. Dinner plates were physically smaller. Everything was smaller. And people ate until they were comfortably satisfied, not until the container was empty. The food industry had not yet perfected the science of making people eat past the point of fullness. That came later. In the 1970s, food was still mostly food. Sugar was present in the 1970s, but it was not hiding in everything. Today, sugar is added to bread, pasta sauce, salad dressing, yogurt, crackers, and hundreds of items where a person would never expect to find it. In the 1970s, if something was sweet, it was supposed to be sweet. Dessert was a deliberate treat, not a hidden ingredient running through every meal of the day. The average American in 1970 consumed around 123 pounds of sugar per year. By the early 2000s, that number had climbed to around 150 pounds. That invisible sugar, hiding in processed foods, has made an enormous difference to body weight across the population. Before we go further, if this look back at how people actually lived resonates with you, and you want to hear more stories about the decades that shaped everyday life, consider subscribing. There is so much more history to explore together. Physical activity in the 1970s was built into daily life in a way that has simply vanished for most people today. Women were not going to the gym 3 times a week. Most gyms, as people know them today, did not even exist yet. Jane Fonda's workout tape did not come out until 1982. There were no Pilates studios, no spin classes, no personal trainers charging by the hour. What there was movement. Constant, ordinary, unremarkable movement built into every single day. Women walked to the grocery store and carried bags home. They pushed heavy lawn mowers. They hung laundry on lines rather than loading dryers. They scrubbed floors on their hands and knees. They had one television in one room, and if they wanted to change the channel, they stood up and walked to it. The average person in the 1970s walked far more steps per day than people do now, and they did it without thinking about it. The car was used for long distances, and everything else was done on foot or by bicycle. Children walked to school, women walked to the shops. Life itself provided the exercise that people now have to schedule into a calendar and force themselves to do. The refrigerator in a 1970s home was also significantly smaller than what people have today, and this matters more than it sounds. A smaller refrigerator meant fewer leftovers, smaller quantities purchased at once, and less food available for mindless grazing throughout the evening. Grocery shopping happened more frequently for smaller amounts. Food was purchased, cooked, eaten, and then the kitchen was closed for the night. The snack food industry in the 1970s was tiny compared to what it became. Chips and cookies existed, but the sheer volume and variety of packaged snack foods that line grocery store aisles today were not yet present. If someone wanted a snack in the evening, the options were an apple, some crackers, maybe a small dish of ice cream. The endless parade of highly engineered snacks, designed to be almost impossible to stop eating, simply had not been invented yet. Television in the 1970s meant 3 or 4 channels, programs that ended at a reasonable hour, and a test pattern after midnight. There was no scrolling through streaming platforms at 1 in the morning. There was no binge watching of an entire season in a single evening. People went to bed earlier because there was simply nothing left to watch. This mattered enormously for body weight. Sleep deprivation, which is rampant today because of screens, directly disrupts the hormones that regulate hunger and fullness. People who sleep less eat more. It is not a character flaw. It is biology. Women in the 1970s were generally sleeping more, and their bodies were responding accordingly. Social life in the 1970s required leaving the house. If a woman wanted to catch up with a friend, she had to physically go somewhere. A coffee, a walk, or a visit to a friend's home were the common options. Sitting alone in a room, staring at a screen for hours while snacking was not a possibility. Boredom, which today sends people straight to the refrigerator and then to the phone, was handled differently. People went outside. They tended gardens. They took walks around the block just to have something to do. The stress of modern life is also a significant factor that is easy to underestimate. Chronic stress drives the body to produce cortisol, a hormone that actively promotes fat storage, particularly around the abdomen. The pace of modern life, constant connectivity, never truly switching off, notifications, the news cycle, and the pressure to be available at all hours create a level of sustained background stress that people in the 1970s simply did not live with. Life in that decade had its stresses. The economy was difficult, the political situation was turbulent. But when the day ended, it ended. The phone did not ring after a certain hour. Nobody sent work emails at 11 at night. Cooking oil is another quiet change that has made a significant difference. In the 1970s, women cooked with butter, lard, or simple vegetable oil. In the 1980s and the 1990s, the low-fat dietary movement convinced people that fat was the enemy. Partially hydrogenated oils and margarine then replaced natural fats in both home cooking and processed food. Research now suggests this switch contributed to health problems rather than solving them. The natural fats women in the 1970s used were metabolized differently by the body than the engineered fats that replaced them. Drinking habits in the 1970s were different in ways that affected weight. Water was drunk from the tap. Juice was a small glass with breakfast, not a 32-ounce bottle carried everywhere. Soda was a treat for parties and special occasions, not a daily beverage. Diet culture had not yet convinced people to swap sugar for artificial sweeteners. Research increasingly suggests these sweeteners can disrupt the body's ability to regulate appetite. People drank less overall, and they drank simpler things. There is one final piece of this picture that is impossible to overlook. Women in the 1970s simply ate less overall, not because they were more disciplined, but because the forces pushing them to eat more had not yet been fully assembled. The food industry had not yet optimized every product to trigger overconsumption. The screen economy had not yet eliminated physical activity from daily life. The culture of constant availability, where food can be ordered and delivered within 30 minutes at any hour of the day or night, did not exist. Portion sizes had not yet been inflated to the point where what is served in a restaurant today would have been considered a family-sized meal half a century ago. Women in the 1970s were slim because the world they lived in was structured differently. The food was different. The movement was different. The sleep was different. The stress was different. It was not willpower. It was not some special discipline that has since been lost. It was simply a way of living that kept the body in balance naturally, without anyone having to try. That world is gone now. The forces that have replaced it are powerful and deliberate, but understanding them is the first step. And for anyone who remembers the way things used to be, there is a certain clarity in recognizing just how much has quietly changed. For those who lived through that era, the memories are always there to explore.